Trade deadline eve. What are we going to get from the Buffalo Sabres? What we're probably not going to get is one of my 5 trades that I'd like to see in the 2025 NHL trade deadline. I'm going to throw you 5 trades that I think the Sabres should make that aren't crazy. That's coming up, and a quick preview of Sabres and Lightning all ahead here in the Locked On Sabres podcast.
You're Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into this Thursday edition of the Locked On Sabres podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including checking us out on our YouTube channel. You can like and subscribe the show there, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Sticky Joe DiBiase on today's show. It is a game day. A little bit later in the show, we'll get to Sabres and Lightning, but more importantly, what it is the eve of trade deadline in the NHL. The deadline passes tomorrow, and there's going to be action in the league. In fact, it is picking up this afternoon. Thursday afternoon, we're getting a lot of waiver moves by teams. Ryan Reeves is one name that you might recognize that has been waived by the Toronto Maple Leafs. And there are others. And you're starting to get deals flow in little by little already. One of which, just for happenstance, just happened in the last couple of minutes before I got rolling here, is Riley Smith being traded back from the New York Rangers to the Vegas Golden Knights. So Riley Smith returns to Vegas in exchange for a third-round pick and prospect Brendan Brisson. If you remember, he was somebody that we talked about in the Eichel sweepstakes. Sabres opted for Peyton Krebs instead. Brisson's not in the NHL and hasn't even been that great in the AHL, so I guess you could say the Sabres got the better guy. Not like Krebs, though, has been that good. So that's just one trade that's happened, and there was another one that just I saw, Chris Driedger for Kaapo Kähkönen, getting some of these minor deals that are thrown around the league. What are we going to get that is big? Well, we'll see. Mikko Rantanen is a name that I have got my eye on from Carolina and whether or not they're going to sign him. Rantanen reportedly making it clear to the Hurricanes that he doesn't intend to sign an extension before Friday. He wants to go to unrestricted free agency. Brock Nelson is a name, maybe the biggest name, one of the biggest rental names that will get traded in the next couple of days, or in the next day, I guess, at this point. But, you know, you pull up, there's a lot of trade bait boards now, right? TSN has theirs, Sportsnet. Right open right now, I've got Frank Saravelli's trade bait list open. And there you don't have the sexiest names. You've got Brock Nelson, number 1, Scott Lawton, number 2, you know, a guy who has 11 goals on the year. Brandon Tanev, Jake Evans of Montreal, Casey Middlestat. Middlestat pops up there. You do get to Bo Byram at number 7, and we'll talk about him in a little bit. One of my trades does involve him. Ricard Raquel, Kyle Palmieri, Joel Armia, you know, names you've heard of, but nothing serious. You go down the list further, you get to your Brock Bessers, and you get to your, Rantanen in his way at the bottom. Pettersson, but none of these are likely. The most likely stuff that we're going to get tomorrow is stuff that doesn't really move the needle all that much. That is kind of what the trade deadline has become. It is not what it was when I was a kid, when the Sabres were good and they were making the playoffs and they were letting us down by not doing anything then, do something Darcy. Trades were made in the league more regularly that mattered. And a lot of them happened on deadline day. And that now it's a little bit before deadline day that it happens. And also, I think Twitter, I'll be the old man take here a little bit. I think Twitter's kind of ruined the trade deadline because there was something nice about flipping on Trade Center, CENTRE, on TSN and having, you know, Bob McKenzie and all the TSN guys sitting around a table and they are discussing what they've heard. And then, there comes the sounder. And there's the logo that comes across the screen. Bob McKenzie's got something, and there was no way to know what was happening other than you either listened to the radio or you were watching on TSN. But Twitter wasn't a thing in 2009, really, 2010, a little bit after that, maybe. So it was kind of cool to have that then, and that is not the case now anymore. I don't even know if these trade shows aren't even worth watching really anymore. So maybe we get some big stuff tomorrow, but I probably bet that we probably don't. For the Sabres, so no Jason Zucker at practice this morning, and still dealing with an injury. There was a wonder at a time, hey, is Zucker not on the ice because of something trade related? But Lindy Ruff put an end to that speculation pretty quickly. He did say on Zucker that he is still dealing with the injury and that they're not a roster management situation. They're trying different treatment options, and Zucker is frustrated that there has been little improvement. So what does that mean? I don't know what different treatment means. We know it's a foot injury. I don't think this really makes an effect on whether he is traded or not, or whether he is signed. I think, maybe there is a team out there that was willing to offer a first-round pick for him. And now that he's got a foot injury, would they second guess that? Would they rather someone else that doesn't have an injury concern? That's possible. To me, Zucker, though, is first round or bust. If you get a first-round pick, sure, make the move. I got into it with someone on our text club who passionate defense of not trading Zucker, and made a lot of sense. But for me, I think I can replace Jason Zucker in the offseason. If someone wants to give me a first-round pick, not to assume the Sabres could get this done, but I would believe that they could go out and they could get a Gustav Nyquist or a Ryan Donato, or they could go find a guy for maybe Patrick Kane, $5 million and replace Zucker's production, especially when Zucker's production probably doesn't hold up next year. I'm not saying he wouldn't be worth having, even if he had regression, but there's probably regression coming. He's not going to be on a 60-point pace next season. That would blow my mind if he did that in back-to-back seasons. So I want to keep Zucker if there is no first-round pick on the table, but if there is a first, that is my ambition, is to see them do that if that move is out there for them. And given the prices of some things, it's not crazy to think that there is a first-round pick out there for Jason Zucker. So that's the guy to watch. Peterka is someone that's been rumored about. Get the stuff on him as well. Yoki Haru is who I meant to say. He's the other one that we would expect to be traded tomorrow. Now, when we come back, I've got 5 trades I want to see the Buffalo Sabres make tomorrow. None of them are that unrealistic. Maybe there's some holes in this one, but none of them are that crazy. I don't got McDavid trades in here. My 5 trades I want to see the Sabres make. Coming up next here in the Locked On Sabres podcast. Today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast with Sneaky Joe DiBiase is presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. I wish you could have took a bet on my dog Finn here, making an appearance on the podcast. You could just tell. When he wants attention, he's hanging out down here, wants to get his takes in. If I could have bet it, I would have bet yes. FanDuel Sportsbook, when the game tips off, when the games face off, FanDuel is the place to be. There's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because with FanDuel, live betting options. If a game is changing or maybe a game started and you want to get in on it, it's always up for you. Almost always up. FanDuel's got something for you. Live betting feature keeps every moment of the game exciting, whether I'm backing my own team for a late game push or picking a player to hit a clutch goal. Never feel like I missed my chance. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Use that on, you got golf firing up here, Arnie Palm this week, and then the players next week. These are the events that are fun to watch in the spring. College basketball, of course, as well. So again, just visit FanDuel.com. You can join there, and you get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Sneaky Joe DiBiase back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. We are roughly 24 hours away from trade deadline day at time of recording. Thanks for listening, you everydayers, once again. And make sure you come back tomorrow for all our deadline coverage. I'll be recording after the Sabres announce they are done, which could be after they've done nothing, or it could be after they've done something. We will see. Here are the 5 trades, though, that I would like to see the Buffalo Sabres make. All different ideas to some degree or another. If you've got a variation of a move that you like, feel free to throw it my way. Text Club, join subtext.com/LockedOnSabres is one place you can do that. Also, you could hit us up on Twitter or Blue Sky. So, let's get to my number one trade I would like to see the Sabres make tomorrow. I'm going to buy in on my own take from yesterday of doing the delayed hockey trade. You trade a piece at the top of your lineup right now for futures that you are intent on spinning for veterans in the offseason. There's no hockey trade out there for you for Dylan Cozens. Trade Cozens for futures now. Take those futures, trade him for the hockey trade guy you would have liked to have in the spring. Do it in the summer instead. So, I'm going to take the team that has been calling and has been on every Cozens list since the beginning of the year. I'm going to send Dylan Cozens to Detroit, and in exchange, I want their number one prospect. I am taking Axel Sandin Pistachios, a right shot defenseman, plays over in Sweden right now, a first-round pick in 2023, puck mover, a little bit undersized, but what we are talking about with Pistachios is a guy that is he's their number one prospect, but he is on a team that already has a lot of good young defensemen. Edvinsson, and of course, you've got Sider, who is in Detroit right now. I'm going to acquire Sandin Pistachios and not really much else. In fact, I'm going to do another service to Detroit to get their number one prospect. I'm not going to take a first-round pick. I'm going to take Andrew Kopp off their roster, who is out for the remainder of the season. So as the Red Wings push for a playoff berth, they don't have any interest in Andrew Kopp this year. He has a couple years left in this contract, a little over $5 million, and we're talking about a 23-point season in 56 games, defensive centerman, plays in the bottom 6, kind of overpaid as a player. So I'm taking on salary to make it work for them, and he's a guy that could play at the bottom of my line. So Cozens for Sandin Pistachios and Kopp. I'm getting one future out of that deal and one future only. And I would be intent on spinning Sandin Pistachios in the offseason for something more valuable, attach a first-round pick to him maybe, and go get something better than Dylan Cozens. Trade number 2 that I would like to see the Sabres make tomorrow. Just trying to spice things up. Bo Byram. Bo Byram, RFA. He's been eligible to sign since last July. Hasn't happened. Has never talked like he is committed to this long-term. I am going to send him away now. And looking around, I'm looking for defensive needy teams. He's from the Vancouver area, so Western Canada. I'm going to send Byram to a team that always needs defensemen. I'm going to send him to Edmonton. I'm going to send Bo Byram to Edmonton. And in exchange, I want one of their top prospects, and I want a first-round pick, given that their first-round pick will be right at the end of the first round, most likely. I want Matt Savoy in a first-round pick. I'm going to take Matt Savoy back. He's one of their best prospects. He was an AHL All-Star this year, 37 points in 45 games. He played 4 games in Edmonton, only 1 assist, and it didn't really go well otherwise for Savoy. So he took a step this year. He didn't take the Kulich step, but he took a step this year. So I'll take Savoy back. I'll take him back, and you're going to give me a first-round pick on top of it for Bo Byram, who I might lose for nothing anyway at some point. Now, you're kind of trading, if you go back in time and just include the McLeod deal, at this point, you've kind of traded Bo Byram for Ryan McLeod in a first-round pick. And I don't mind that. That's fine, right? I think that's completely fine. So I'm going Savoy and a first for Victor Arvidsson, I'm including just for cap reasons to make it work for Edmonton because they've got cap problems. And I was looking at Edmonton and looking for salaries to match this up a little bit. And I'm like, okay, Evander Kane, who they want to get rid of to clear the salary. Yeah, not going to happen here. Jeff Skinner, who I'm like, I wonder if Skinner's not coming back here. Sure, Edmonton might want to move his salary off the roster, but Skinner was smart. He signed a full no movement clause because he's never played in the playoffs before. He wants to appear in the playoffs. I'm sure he does not want to go down in history as the player who played the most games ever without playing in the playoffs. He's going to play in the playoffs this year. He's going to stay in Edmonton, even if he only gets a couple of those games. He's not coming back to Buffalo. So that's not going to be your cap dump. Arvidsson is what's left. 7 goals this year. He's been a healthy scratch. Big cap number. They're definitely going to want out of that. So I'll take Arvidsson back from the Edmonton Oilers. By the way, the details exactly on his contract, if you are curious, are where'd they go? He's got 2 more years at $4 million. This year and next year at $4 million. Trade number 3 that I would like to see the Buffalo Sabres make. All of these, by the way, are going to favor the Sabres a little bit. My list. I want to see these are things I get real excited about. I would feel like the Sabres did well. I wouldn't have to convince myself much of these deals. Maybe the Cozens one a little bit, but not the others. Trade number 3, J.J. Peterka to Pittsburgh. There was a rumor yesterday from Elliot Friedman that the Penguins have contacted the Sabres. They are interested in their young players. I think Peterka has got to be the name that they're thinking of. So, all right, Pittsburgh, you want Peterka? I want to get older. I don't want to be the youngest team in the league anymore. I want a veteran on my roster. So I'm going to send you Peterka, and you're going to give me Rickard Rakell, who has 29 goals on the year in 63 games. But he is 31, soon to be 32 in like a month, 2 months. So I'm taking a 32-year-old off your roster. You're getting a 23-year-old. So I'm going to get your first-round pick. But because the Penguins are terrible and they might have a top 10 pick, I'll take the Rangers' first-round pick, which is more in the middle of the teams, I think 14th pick. So the trade is Rakell and a first for Peterka. I'm getting older by 9 years. I'm getting a first on top of it to do it, and I'm still getting a top 6 player. I am changing the dynamic of the Buffalo Sabres from the youngest team in the league to a bit of an older team, more of a veteran team. Rakell also, by the way, somebody that you can play on the power play a little bit more than Peterka. I've never liked Peterka on the power play. Rakell's not great in the power play either, but better maybe by a little bit. So that's the trade I'm looking for with the Penguins. Trade number 4. This one's more simplified, more easy to believe. I'm going to go Jason Zucker to Winnipeg for a first-round pick. Winnipeg's got a little bit of space. Maybe you got to retain $1 million of salary, which, by the way, Chad DeDominis has pointed out today, amazing stat. Sabres have not retained salary on any trade since 2021 when they traded Taylor Hall to Boston. 4 years. That's unbelievable for a team that's had cap space every single year. It's almost disgusting. They've allowed that to happen. Anyways, Zucker to Winnipeg for a first. Jets get a little more firepower as they enter the playoffs. And the Sabres get a first that will probably be way at the back of the first round. And finally, no surprise here if you listen to me enough, the trade I want to see more than any that I still think is realistic. I want to trade Dylan Cozens and Bo Byram to Vancouver for Elias Pettersson. I still want to. Pettersson's been bad. He has blamed the media. He has blamed JT Miller. He's blamed injury. The Canucks are not happy with him. There is a question maybe about him being mentally soft. He just had his first game in 2 months where he had more than 1 shot on goal. It's going very poorly. I'm willing to take all that risk. I'm willing to take all that risk of an $11+ million per year player that is playing as bad as he is right now, that doesn't have any confidence. He has not scored a goal since January 21st. In fact, he has 1 goal since the new year. How about that? 1 goal since the new year in 21 games. It's going horribly. That's how you're able to get him. So I'm going to take the risk. I want to trade Cozens to fire him for Pettersson. That's my favorite trade idea of deadline season. Whether it happens or not, it's going to be very much up to the Vancouver Canucks. All right. Those are my 5 trades I'd like to see. If you got a edit to any of them, you want to shift one around a little bit, feel free to reach out and let me know what you think. When we come back, Sabres and the Lightning. What should we expect from this one tonight? We'll get to it when we come back here in the Locked On Sabres podcast. Sneaky Joe DiBiase back here on Locked On Sabres. We are wrapping things up here on a game night, Sabres and Lightning tonight. And the question posed was by me, transitioning into this segment was, what should we expect from tonight's game? And my answer would be, not much. Not much. Simply put, I don't think Jason Zucker is going to play. I don't expect the Sabres to do well tonight. They're playing in Tampa, a place they have not done a lot of winning. The Lightning, by the way, Julian Brisebois, their GM, made a comment today about how I don't need picks. Give me as many good players as possible. I'm trying to win Stanley Cups. They're a team that's very aggressive about trading their picks away, and they're going to do that in the next 24 hours. They've already done it a little bit. Minus 245 on the money line over at FanDuel Sportsbook. Tampa to win this game. The Sabres plus 198. Player I am locked in on for tonight's game is JJ Peterka. I do not believe it's his last game with the Sabres at all, but of course he's been talked about in the media, someone that might be on the market, or teams are at least calling on, I should say, leading into the deadline. Peterka quietly, since January 21st, in the last 44 days, JJ Peterka, players in the NHL with more even strength points than JJ Peterka in the last 44 days, David Pastrnak, end of list. That's it. He is number 2 in the NHL in even strength points in the last 44 days. Yes, that is a very cherry-picked amount of time. I was looking at Peterka's game log today, and I noticed that right around that game specifically in January 21st, he had 2 points that night, and then he started scoring consistently. That's why I picked that date. So, yes, it was cherry-picked, admitting that up front. But still, 44 days, second in the league, and he is scoring again. Quietly, the assist total has gone way up for JJ Peterka. Peterka last year scored a lot of goals, 28, right? But he only had 22 assists in 82 games, 22 assists. This year, he's already at 31. And that has him, he's 1 point off of last year's total, 50 points in 82 games. This year, he's got 49 and 58. He's on a 70-point pace for the season. And that is a big jump. That's a big jump. So while the goal scoring has come down a little bit, the playmaking and the point total has gone up for JJ Peterka. So he's the player that I'll be locked in on for tonight's game. Sabres and Lightning, 7 o'clock. Enjoy the game, and we will talk to you tomorrow on trade deadline day here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. If you want more league-wide deadline coverage, of course, be sure to check out Locked On NHL, covering all the local and national stories from around the league. You can check them out wherever you get your podcasts. We'll talk to you tomorrow here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.